How's it going, everybody? Andre here from liveholy.org, and today we are going to be talking about renewing your mind and why it is so important if you want to attain your calling in life. Pretty simple. Today, Romans 12, verse 2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect." You see, the renewing of your mind begins with your self-image. We all have our own personal self-image. A lot of us, we kind of basically we've been told by the world that we are certain things. We've either been told that we're attractive, we've been told we're ugly, we've been told we're skinny, we've been told we're fat, we've been told we're successful, we've been told we're smart, we've been told we're dumb, we've been told we're failures. You name it, we've been told it. The world, it wants you to be a certain way. It wants you to be average. It wants you to be mediocre. It wants you just to kind of go along with the flow. And ultimately, if that's the way that you're going to live your life, without taking charge of who you are, without taking charge of your self-image, you're going to be just a ship lost at sea, without control, without the ability to decide anything for yourself or for your future. And you're going to have zero impact on the world whatsoever. You can't impact something that controls you. The world is going to exert complete control over you. You are not going to be able to do anything to the world. Now, you may have a good life or you may have a bad life. To the world, it doesn't matter. All that it cares about is that you have no impact whatsoever. You have no ability to change anything in your life. No matter what, it's going to be mediocre, and you're going to follow the path of least resistance. That's what the world wants you to be. God, on the other hand, He's called you to greatness. He's called you to be superhuman. He's called you to be supernatural. He's called you to be someone far above and beyond just a ship lost at sea. He wants you to be the kind of person that takes control of your life. He wants you to be the kind of person that helps influence the world around him. He wants you to be the kind of person that essentially changes the world. Now, this is a very countercultural way of living your life. Luke 6:26 says, Yeshua, Jesus, he tells us, "Woe to you when all men speak well of you, for their fathers used to treat the false prophets in the same way." The thing is, when you begin living a life of holiness, when you begin living a life dedicated to the kingdom, when you begin stepping out to move in the prophetic, to move in healings, to move in the supernatural, it's all countercultural. It's all things that the world does not understand. And they can't. They're of the flesh, and you are trying to live a life of the spirit. So ultimately, if you want to become superhuman, you have to be countercultural. I'm reminded of, I was kind of thinking about it, and the Ichthys, the little fish symbol that we have. The way I view it, that's got to be a salmon, because the salmon, they swim upstream. They swim against the current in order to spawn, in order to reproduce, in order to attain their calling in life. That's everything that they are about, is swimming upstream to reproduce. And they fight tremendous odds in order to attain their calling in life. So I think the Ichthys, the little fish symbol, he's a salmon. Now we have to be very intentional with our lives and with our callings. We have to take time to think about who God has really designed us to be. Now that needs to be your self-image. That needs to be something that you take time to think about, to understand. Say, God, what are the passions that you've put in my heart? What are the desires that you've put in my heart? And what am I currently doing to attain those passions and desires? I'm reminded of the beginning of the book of Joshua, where God tells Joshua, you need to be strong and you need to be courageous. And in order to attain our callings, in order to take that promised land that God has given us, we need those. God's already promised those things to us. And we need, in order to to attain them for ourselves, we need to be strong and courageous. We need to be willing to fight against the culture. We need to be intentional about who we are, who we desire to be. We need to fight against the culture. We need to go upstream like the salmon does. And we need to settle for nothing less than greatness, because that's who God desires for us to be. Every time we take the path of least resistance, every time we settle for being mediocre and we decide that we're okay with just being who the world wants us to be, we're going to have zero impact on our lives. And it all boils down to who we believe ourselves to be, because we have either spent the time that it takes to renew our minds and trust who God has called us to be and start living out that life, or we have not taken the time to renew our lives and we've found ourselves pushed along by the waves of the sea. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this little teaching. If you did, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. I'm going to be posting plenty more videos on everything from theology to moving in the supernatural and, of course, living holy. Thanks a lot. God bless.